Okay, today I'm going to show you how to fillet a sea bass. But before that, I'm going to show you some of the tools that I may well be using today. So here we have a scaling device for taking the scales off the fish. I've got my filleting knife, which is very flexible, so I can get nicely down the bones. I have a set of fish scissors, and then from removing the bones, a collection of different items. You can use forceps, a peeler, a pair of pliers, or if you so wish, a pair of tweezers. So there is many different ways of getting the bones out, and as I go through, I'll show you some of the different ways. Okay, so here we have two lovely sea bass. Okay, I can tell they're lovely and fresh. They've got that bloom on them that shows that the fish are fresh. The eyes are nice and clear, and we've got lovely red gills inside there, which really does show freshness. Normally from your fishmongers you'll get them like this, with the guts removed and the scales taken off. But I have one here that I'm going to start with and just show you quickly how you would remove the scales and you would remove the innards if you had one of these. So we're going to start with this one first. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a bit of a haircut. So we're going to get rid of the fins, like so. Now, as I say with all the training videos that I do, there is no one way of doing something. Different chefs do things different ways. So please don't feel that if your trainer, teacher, tells you something different, it doesn't matter. As long as you get the end result, that's what's important. So, I'm removing all the fins because it makes the job easier, like so. So that's it. All the fins have now been removed from there. It's easier to take the scales off of a round fish, which this is, when you've still got the guts in, because you've still got the support of the whole thing. Now, it's a very messy job removing scales, and that's why predominantly it's done by your fishmonger. But this, you scrape this along, as you probably can see, the scales start flying up in the air and they go all over the place. So I'm not going to make a mess of this board, as I've already scaled the other one. So that's the implement you need for that. If you don't have one of them, you can do it with the back of a knife. And I suggest to start with, you do it with not the blade, because that way you won't cut into the flesh. If you use the blade, if you're confident, it's okay, but if you're not, then the blade will actually cut into the flesh of the fish. So, I'm now going to show you quickly how to take the guts out. Again, many different ways of doing this, but the way I do it is I start at the back end and go all the way up to the top. Okay, open it up, then you just literally can pull the inside of the fish out like that. Once it's all starting to show, you cut the bit at the top, remove it like that, and then you would wash the fish before you start going any further. And in true Blue Peter fashion, here's one I've got prepared earlier. I'm just going to remove the fins because I haven't already done that. You can tell when all the scales have been removed, which I'll show you in just a second. So there we go. We've got all the fins removed now, so that makes the filleting a lot easier. When you run your finger down there, it feels nice and smooth. And that way you know that all the scales are off. Be very careful with these top bones, because they are deadly and they stick in your finger, and to be honest, some people have a bit of a reaction to them. But so we've got to the stage where we've got the guts are out, it's been washed, it's nice and clean. This is a farmed sea bass. Generally speaking, they come from the Mediterranean, but they're being farmed now quite a lot of different places. So I take a filleting knife, and the first thing I do is I run it round the head like so. You see how I've come round in an arc? That way we make sure we don't waste any flesh. I'm now going to do the same thing on the other side. like so. Okay. Now, as I said, different people do this in different ways. Some people would take the head off at this point and fill it from there. I'm going to show you the way that I like to do it, which is I don't actually take the head off. So we've got, going down here, we have the central bone. The fish has a set of bones going up like that. I'm going to cut down the top of them all the way down to the bottom, like so, going down either side of that, all the way down to the bottom. Just a second, I'll show you how I'm doing it. I've opened that up there like that, so I'm removing the fillet. So there I have, I've removed the first fillet from the sea bass. I'm now going to turn the fish, well first of all I'm going to do my centre cut down the back of the bones. To there. So I've now removed the fillet from the top. I'm now going to work my way down the back of the bones. Okay, around the second fillet has come off there. Okay, you're left with the bones there, the flesh is off. So while we've got the bones here, we'll prepare them for stock. We remove the gills. There's one side. Then remove the other side. These are the parts that we don't put into the stock. We then remove the eyes. Like so. Again, we don't want the eyes for the stock because they will taint the stock. Like so. And then I would wash that to get rid of the blood before putting it into the stock. Okay, I'm now going to take my fillets and I'm going to cut them to the shape that I require before taking off the skin. Again, the stock, we're left with one fillet. Two fillets. So now we have our two fillets. Now with sea bass, generally speaking, we would leave the skin on. So skin on both of them. So what I'm going to do is for this one, I'm going to leave the skin on and remove the pin bones and show you how to sizzle it. I'm going to do a second one in a second, which I will take the skin off. Okay, so 3 different ways of removing pin bones. Everybody has their favourite. Different chefs work with different things. The pin bones run down here all the way to the bottom. Okay, and in a sea bass they are quite firm, so we do need to remove them. The old-fashioned way that you were probably taught at college is to take a potato peeler and pull them out like that. Okay, you feel them, you put the bone between, just through the hole, twist and pull. But always pull in the direction that the bones are going so that you don't damage the flesh. Okay? So that was all the bones that were in that one. Okay, so we put that one there. So a pair of forceps is another way of doing it. Okay, as I say, you can use tweezers So 1. So you feel the bone with your finger and you pull it out with a forceps. There you go. So this time, as I did before, I'm coming round the head to make sure that I've got all the flesh. I'm going to come round the head the other side, but then I'm going to cut through. So I've removed the head completely. Remember what I said when making the fish stock? We need to clean out the eyes and the gills, which I won't do again. So, another way of filleting is to start at the top end and go straight down the fish. Now what I'm feeling is I'm feeling where the bone is there, and that's where my knife is. I'm coming down all the way to the end. So I've got one off there. But what I have on this one is all these central bones are still connected. So I'm going to have to go back and remove them afterwards. So turn it over and do exactly the same thing the other way. Okay, so just a different way of doing it. So now what we've got is we've got 2 fillets, but they've still got all the belly bones in there. So now we need to remove the belly bones by coming down the flesh like that and coming off like that. That's number 1. And now we're going to do number 2. Okay, so remember what I said, what we're going to do with this one is we're going to remove the skin from it, but first of all I'm going to pin bone them. So last time I didn't show you a pair of little stubby pliers, so we can do exactly the same thing. Remember, we need to pull the bone in the direction that it's going in. That way you don't disfigure the flesh. Okay? Sometimes there's lots of bones down there, sometimes there isn't. And the trick is to feel with your finger. If you're doing a competition, the judges will run their fingers down your fish to just check whether you've got all the bones out. And trust me, if you miss one, the judges will find it. Now, we're going to skin these sea bass fillets. And again, just literally lift it up slightly, knife at an angle, moving it really slowly along the top, and we remove the skin and there's no flesh left on the skin. Okay, I've noticed we've got a little bit of trim on there. A little bit of trim on there, so there's number 1. Okay, we're going to skin again. So, moving down there. See how I'm keeping my knife flat, and again, there is no flesh left on there. We have a little bit of skin on there, which I'm just removing. Just tidy it up a little bit. So, there's 2 fillets there with no skin on. Now, if you leave the skin on a fish to cook it in a pan, what happens is when you put it into the pan, the skin goes and tightens up, and then it scrunches up and often curls up so it doesn't cook evenly. So what you have to do is something called sizzling, and that's just cutting into the flesh lightly. And if I show you there, see the way I've cut into the flesh? Okay, that's called sizzling. So now when I put this fillet skin side down into a frying pan, it won't curl up. So I'll do that again. It's just a little cut. And this is, trust me, when you find out whether you have a sharp knife. Because if your knife's not sharp enough, it won't go through, and then you'll end up cutting the fillet in half. So, just to recap, we have filleted sea bass, skin on, skin off. We have sizzled there, and then we will have our waste, which we're going to use for our fish stock. We've removed the eyes and the gills because they will make your fish stock better, and we retain the remainder of it to go in the fish stock. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, fillet of sea bass.